everyone, welcome to week 4 of AP Psych. So for this week you have a free response question that you need to do, as well as you have your unit exam. So you have your week 4 free response question and unit 2 final exam. So for your free response question, I give you a few different hints so you can either access it through a Google document. So if you click here, it gives you a Google document that gives you hints and tips on doing an FRQ. Or if you scroll down more, I give you direct examples if you click on FRQ help. So it's adaptive release. So you first have to do the adaptive release, which is formative, but it allows you to make sure you are going to complete your FRQ correct. So if you click FRQ help, it opens up a document that helps you understand what you need to do in order to be successful on an FRQ. So the acronym TDA is what I use in AP Psych. What you need to do is identify the term, so that's what T stands for in TDA. Then you need to define the term, and then you need to apply the term to the scenario that you are given. Here's what I mean by TDA. So term, define, apply. So underline any key terms or people, things that you think you're going to have to define and explain in the prompt. So for example, for week 4, Professor Han received a grant to study the relationship between childhood obesity and video game playing. So what they're trying to study is basically if a child plays video games, is there a correlation with their weight? So explain how Professor Han could use each of the following research methods to study this topic. So first you need paragraph 1. So indent it, label A, paragraph 1, case study. I want you to define what a case study is, and then I want you to explain how a case study could be used in Professor Han's research. Paragraph 2, indent. Define what a survey is, and then explain what type of survey or how you can conduct a survey on Professor Han's experiment. Paragraph 3, define what naturalistic observation is, and then explain how this could be used in this experiment. B, design an experiment Professor Han could use to investigate this topic. Include the following terms in the context of your design. So explain what operational definition is, and then explain what those operational definitions would be that he would have to define in his experiment. So what does he consider obese? At what level of video gaming would there be a correlation to obesity? So define what those terms are. Then define what the independent and dependent variable are. So the independent variable, remember, is something that can be manipulated. So define what an independent variable is, define what a dependent variable is, and then explain which is the dependent variable in this situation, which is the independent variable in this experiment. Then define what random assignment is, and explain how a random assignment would be used in this experiment. Then for part C, explain how Professor Han's experimental design would conform to ethical guidelines. So you have to explain what ethical guidelines are and how he would conform to them. Then D, explain how he would use statistics, including at least one measure of central tendency and inferential statistics to examine the data from his study. So explain different types of statistics that they use in experiments. So explain mean, median, mode, range, standard deviation. Explain how they plot them on a scattered plot and how they look for correlation and what correlation means, and explain what a bell curve is. Make sure you're explaining how they would analyze the statistics. I do provide for you on this document some student examples, and I provide examples of how the AP board has scored those examples prior. So I highly recommend using this document to help you in your week 4 FRQ. Also, you have your exam. So your exam is testing you on what you learned from reading chapter 1. So give me specifics from chapter 1. So I know there's one question that asks you about which data point or which type of data is the most affected by outliers. So you want to go to your section of your book that talks about mean, median, mode, that section of the book. And as you learned in the e-session yesterday, mean is the most affected outlier. I highly recommend for this exam, if you look at the last 10 minutes of week 4's e-session, it will help you identify some areas that you need to study more in depth. I hope that helps.